Your boys are back. Welcome to In Rotation Podcast. Your boys are back. Welcome back, everybody, to In Rotation Podcast. We have a special episode for y'all today. As always, I'm your host, B, and with us today we have Jer, Nick, and Jay. What's up, guys?
What up, B?
So it's 2021. I can't believe we finally got past 2020. But we're going to look at we made it. We're going to look past on some of the good times of 2020 by counting down our personal top 5 albums of the year. I'm really excited to get together with you guys and talk about what your favorite music was. Some of these albums we've reviewed before, so it'll be cool to kind of like get that take from you guys of how it's grown on you. Obviously, you still liked a lot of them because they're in your top 5. And we'll just go ahead and kick it over to Jared to share his top 5.
Thanks, B. Yeah, 2020, crazy year. I think one of the saving graces of the year was all the good music that came out. I think across the board, like even in like some other genres I listened to, a lot of good music came out. Possibly artists, have like more time to kind of like focus on their shit, like kind of quarantining in the studio or what have you. So I think it made for a good year in music. Yeah, like you said, some of the albums that we reviewed this year made it into my top 5. So I'll just kick us right off. Number 5 on my list, Kid Cudi, Man on the Moon 3. And I'll just keep going down the list just so you guys kind of have a sense of what to expect as I'm talking about these. Number 4 would be Lil Baby, My Turn. Number 3 is a little lesser known artist off of Top Dog Entertainment, which is Kendrick Lamar's label. And it's Reason, New Beginnings. So that's his debut album. So that was a really good listen. Looking forward to talking a little bit about that. Number 2, getting high up on the list here, we got Jack Harlow. That's What They All Say. Great album. We didn't actually review this album specifically, but we did review his sort of project that kind of preceded this. Yeah, so some of the same tracks on that, and this was a great follow-up piece. So I'm happy to have this on my list here. And then number 1, I see it's made it on, actually, you know what? I won't, no spoiler alerts. I'm just going to talk about my shit. You guys can talk about your shit. RTJ4. Hoo-wee. Yeah. Crazy good album. And the timing of it was kind of one of the things that made it so special. And just musically and lyrically and everything about it was just like fucking top notch. And yeah, so that's my number 1. I kind of spilled the beans earlier there, but let me backtrack to number 5 here and talk a little bit about Kid Cudi. So does this show up anywhere else here? I think this could be the only Kid Cudi that we're going to be hearing about tonight. But yeah, Kid Cudi. So yeah, he's one of those artists for me. Like, let me get you guys so I can see you guys. Yeah, I'm talking to you guys. So
you're not directly addressing the artist this time. You're not talking to Kid Cudi.
Yeah, it feels a little more natural. Yeah, so yeah, I have done that actually though in the past, and I think maybe I will at some point tonight, but we'll see. You guys got to be watching our podcast to see me talking to artists directly through our podcast.
If you're talking directly to them, you're telling them something important, dude. When it comes from you, dude.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, yeah, can you please stop making music like that?
Yeah. He gave Luda some good advice earlier this year, man. So.
No, I did. Real talk. So yeah, if you're an artist, if you're a hip hop artist, make sure to hit subscribe. You'll get some good pointers here. Yeah, so yeah, back to Kid Cudi, Man on the Moon 3. You know, just the fact that, you know, so just the fact that it's like kind of cool that like he does other albums and shit, but he kind of comes back to his Man on the Moon projects. And like for me, like Kid Cudi was someone that he's been around like ever since Day and Night. Everyone remembers that jam back in the day. You know, classic jam. Like he's for me like one of those artists who's like been like kind of open about his mental health stuff that he's had going on, you know, and you know, at the same time kicks down some like really sick flows. And you know, for me, Kid Cudi, like it's not even still like just about like the flows and the beats. Like his albums are like kind of like theatrical in a way, and like kind of like a production, and kind of you know, it tells a story. Like if you feel like he's taking you somewhere on a journey, so to speak, more so than like, you know, a lot of other albums that I listen to. You know, so I give him his credit for that, you know. And for me, this album did that. And um yeah, I really dug it. Yeah, really respect his work. And something about this album too, like um you know, Kid Cudi, like I was saying, like he does like have that theatrical element to like a lot of his music and his albums. And you know, this, you know, it had that, but it was also like a lot of bars. Like Kid Cudi came through with the raps on this, and like he really showcased his talent. And I respected that. I dug that. Yeah, and it's just a really smooth listen. Like I can throw it on and enjoy the whole thing. And you know, it doesn't sound too repetitive. um you know, you got like a little bit of variety on it, keeps you interested. But at the same time, it's got a good cohesive like sound. So yeah, like an overall great project. And I'm like you know, more than like happy and to put this on my list, feel confident that it belongs there. And so that's my list. I won't take up too much more time on that. Moving right along to Lil Baby. I fuck with Lil Baby. Yeah. Lil Baby is like one of my favorite artists. Like, you know, he's been putting out music like way before I like discovered him, obviously. But you know, ever since I first heard him, like I was immediately kind of like a big fan. And I think maybe possibly one of the first times I heard him was with Drake on Yes Indeed. I think that was like what really made me like solidified my love for Lil Baby. Yes Indeed. Him and Drake on the same track, killing it. And man, I fucking love that song. I used to play that song all the time at Pizza Port. Jukebox, because we had a jukebox and I'd always fucking play that shit. Yeah. Drip Too Hard. You know, he's got a lot of good music out. And you know, like Lil Baby's like one of the biggest in the game right now. And for me too, like I had to have Lil Baby on my list because of the impact that he made with his Bigger Picture single, which we've done an episode on. Check it out. Check out that episode. Like I think that's one of our better episodes.
But we could say like link in the comments. I just got to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yo, check out
one of the better songs we reviewed too. Like
100%.
Credit to the episode, but more credit to the song, because I love that song and I keep coming back to that song.
And I have to say, Jay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, I'm gonna say that's one of the true. Like I stayed true to keeping it in my rotation and actually keeping playing it, because I've said that a lot in the past episodes and it didn't actually come to fruition. But that one I kept on playlist, and it's just a solid song.
Totally.
And Jared, when I saw this was on your list, I that was one of the ones I went back and listened to, and it fell out of my rotation pretty quickly. I mean, it's quickly for me, so you know, maybe like a week or two. But when I went back and listened to it, there's a lot of good songs on his album, man. And I think it's one of his most consistent. And just the features are good, the beats are good. So it's definitely something that, because of this, experience of us talking about these albums, I think I'm gonna actually go back and listen to it more. So I'm glad that we did this just for that reason alone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like one of those ones where you come back and you're like, oh shit, this actually like was really good. It kind of it holds up. Like it really does, the album. And you know, I think one of my I think you're a pretty big Gunna fan, am I right?
Totally.
Yeah. And you know, I know that there's other Jay, I think you're
yeah, Gunna made my top 5, dude.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So his his feature on this album is like probably one of my favorite songs, Heating Up. Really good track. You know, there's also my favorite song on this track probably from the start was Grace with 42 Doug. There's Some to Prove, which is a great song. You know, and like I think Brandon, you may have mentioned there's some really good features on this. Lil Wayne, Future, like I already said, Gunna, 42 Doug, Young Thug. So you've got a really solid album here. Lil Baby, he like gets a lot out in his songs, you know, like his like verses are always jam packed with lyrics. He says a lot, you know. You know, I'm not like making any like comments about like the, you know, I'm not saying that like the lyricism is like the best or his flow is the best, but he like really he spits a lot, you know. And you know, it's a lot of content. So I respect that. And also I'll just say real quick, his like the additions to like the deluxe edition, like really solid. Like there's a song called We Paid that also has 42 Doug on it. So I was really excited about that track, just because the other song with 42 Doug was like my favorite. So I knew that this was going to be something that I liked, and I really did. There's a song called Social Distancing that has some pretty fire lyrics, you know, and are relevant to the current moment, which always kind of like is fun. So yeah, Lil Baby, been a fan of Lil Baby, and this kind of is gonna keep me listening to him. So yeah, that's my number 4 right there.
Dude, I gotta add in real quick too, man. Lil Baby had a big year. Lil Baby had a big year, man. He was already featured in some stuff. I forget when this album came out. I was looking at a lot of like the timing on some of the stuff, because one of the things that was interesting this year when you were looking at albums and when they came out, was, were they pre-pandemic? Were they mid like George Floyd uprising? And or were they more like in the fall when kind of things had settled down a little bit? But either way, Lil Baby had a big year where he was featured in a lot of stuff before the pandemic. Then we, you know, like we already talked about, we reviewed Bigger Picture. Great song. One of my absolute top 5 favorite songs of the year, Bigger Picture, was an unbelievable song. The content, the style, we talked about it at the time. It's a song that you can come back and listen to regardless of what the context of what the song is, you know. And that was what was one of the dope parts about it. But then he continued after that to be featured on albums. I mean, he was featured on big name albums. He had big names featured on this album. This was a big year for Lil Baby, where people really got to see what he has to offer. And me personally too, I didn't know a lot about him. I kind of, honestly, even his name kind of turned me off. I'm like, Da Baby, Lil Baby. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know who's who, like, you know, but like, I got to learn his style to the point where later throughout the year, after we did the Bigger Picture episode, I would hear his voice and I'd be like, I think this is Lil Baby. And I would kind of tune in a little bit more. And I started to see him crop up everywhere in hip hop. He had a big year, and I think a really successful year. Good for him, and it was good stuff too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, definitely wanted to shout that. That's one of the reasons why I had him on here. I was like, yo, I got to give my shouts to Lil Baby, because he's been on the come up and he just like blew up for sure.
Some say that he's like, he could be the chosen one, like the one that could be, I mean, that's a little dramatic, but that he could be the one that could be like the next own the next decade, like Drake style, you know what I mean? Like because he's so his wave is so big right now, and he's been consistent. And his first out, actually, I don't even know if this is his first album. To be honest, I'm stupid.
It's his second studio album.
Okay, but I've heard a lot just from the ecosystem. Like he's always on these top 5 lists. I'm glad you put this fool on your list, dude, and glad we're giving him extra time too, because he's the one, dude.
Totally.
Chosen one.
I chose one. I will say that he's grown a lot, and the bigger picture showed that, and I think this album backed it up a little bit. Not that it was as powerful as the song, but how could you really, right? But anyways, that's all I really wanted to add to that. Back to you, Jer.
Yeah, and like sometimes I find myself like getting like tired of like Lil Baby, but if I listen to like too much in a row.
Yeah.
Like too much, but like it's like one of those ones where I come back and pick out like a song or two off the album and like listen to it, and it's like it just hits. Like so like yeah, I wasn't sure at first, like like it's kind of tough to get through the whole album for me specifically. It's just kind of like a distinct sound, and like for me, like sometimes I don't relate as much, like the content I can't relate to as much sometimes, and like he's just like a younger guy from the hood, and it's just like sometimes like I can't just vibe with it, but like I can like pick out a song or two and like just really like vibe out, like just listen to some of those like bangers. So yeah, great project, and then the deluxe edition is fire too, just so you guys know. So moving right along to Reason, New Beginnings. This is a debut album from him, and he's off of Top Dog Entertainment. And I think this has been mentioned before, but me and these 3 guys right here went and saw a Top Dog Entertainment show down here in San Diego. Shit was fucking lit. But, Jay, tell us how lit it was, dog.
Oh, dude, it was lit. I can confirm that. Even, dude, it was so lit. We were going the DJ before any of the featured artists came out. Like, it was dope, dude. He's playing Sway Lee. Remember that, dude? He was playing that Sway Lee song, Ray Shremmer.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that was a great trip. Epic.
Yeah. That was
that wasn't the one where me and Leezy ended up in the gutter at the end of the night, was it?
It is.
Oh, okay,
no.
Oh,
Well,
great
that
show.
wasn't.
2 Chainz.
That was 2 Chainz.
Oh,
Okay,
it was
okay.
Chainz. Shit,
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I
I know.
exited halfway through, unconscious.
It was that beer and shot combo
was
in the
fun,
back.
Yeah, who was the opener
Yeah,
to
that was a
2
good
Chainz?
deal. That was a good deal.
It was
That
Young Dolph, baby.
Young
It was
Dolph,
Dolph.
dude, he killed it, dude.
Hell
that was
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that was fun. All right, sorry, sidetrack. So we have seen Top Dog Entertainment. I don't think Reason was part of the Top Dog crew at this time. I'm even like I'm like more sure that he like definitely wasn't like at that show. Like we didn't see Reason perform. But like yeah, I think he's like a newer member to Top Dog Entertainment. So like when I heard like when I was checking out new music, this kind of popped up, kind of like read about it a little bit, and I was like, oh shit, Top Dog Entertainment, like that's what's up. I need to check this out. And that's kind of like the vibe you get when you listen to this album. Like for me, it was kind of like a little mix of like it's just like Kendrick Lamar and like Schoolboy Q, like it kind of like the beats and like the music itself like kind of had like those vibes that like it was similar to like that which you would hear like on a Kendrick or like Schoolboy song or project. And so you got a lot of that on this, but the actual content itself was like more like meaningful, less like thug shit, and more like talking about your experience and talking about like your personal relationships and like like where they're at and like how they've been affected. And I don't know, it was just like a more meaningful, like kind of like, I don't want to like compare it to Nas because Nas's shit this year was fucking off the charts, but like kind of like in that same realm of just like kind of meaningful shit that like that I can appreciate on a different level. So yeah, that was like, and it was like really like re-listenable to me for some reason. I think I don't know. It had some like really like memorable songs with like so Rhapsody is one of them. She's a female artist, and she has a really sick hook on one of his songs. It's called "I Can Make It," and there's some other sick features like Vince Staples and Schoolboy Q.
Ooh.
So yeah,
Okay.
exactly, man. Jay, I heard you.
Lizzie on that Vinny Staples.
Vinny Staples, baby.
Mhm.
Dude, Schoolboy too.
Yeah.
I was disappointed, honestly, when you sent my list. I was disappointed in myself or when you sent your list. I was disappointed in myself for not listening to Reason, dude. He has every reason, like everything about him is intriguing. Like, why am I not playing this, dude?
I listened to that album, man. That was one of the ones on the whole kind of grouping of everybody's that I hadn't really heard, and I wasn't even familiar with the artist or whatever. And it was an interesting one because there were some other ones that I peeped that I maybe wasn't that familiar with. That, like, I'll say some things about later when they get there. But this was one that I really liked the vibe of it. There was a few things, that I maybe heard the word pussy a little bit more than I'd like to and stuff like that. But overall, it was, especially coming from my wholesome boy Jer, I was a little surprised at some of that. But overall, I liked the guy. He just felt so solid, like just a great style and vibe and flow. He didn't blow my mind with his rhymes or anything like that, but he just put together like a really solid album that you could vibe to, that I really respected. Like I said, I don't think I've heard him before. I think you're right. He wasn't at the show that we went to. That was a lot of the bigger names at the time, in the Top Dog or whatever. But I listened to it and I was like, I had no idea what I was getting into, and it very much felt like that, like a nice mainstream, like solid, well-made kind of album.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Completely agree.
And I don't mean mainstream as an insult at all. I mean that as a compliment. You know what
I'm getting kind of like J. Cole vibes as someone. Is that way off or what? Comparing to Reason.
No, I don't think it's way off.
No, I don't think it's way off either. I think
It's like J. Cole got touched by like Jay-Z when he first came out. This dude's getting touched by Kendrick Lamar. Like the dude's putting him out. And then, but also the way you described the content, maybe the content and the content seems like J. Cole. I'm speaking out of my ass because I've never heard Reason, but what you're describing reminded me of J. Cole.
Yeah. I feel like you can put them in the same category for like a certain like amount of like, reasons. Sorry, I was looking for any other word besides reason.
It's happened a few times so far.
Yeah, this is the second or third time that's happened.
But I don't know if he actually has like the same sort of like it factor that J. Cole has. I'm not sure he'll blow up the way J. Cole did. But as far as like vibe and like sort of, I can kind of see where you're coming from on that. But you gotta check it out, man. You gotta check it out to really see for yourself.
Gotta check it out. Yo, so Jer, we shouldn't talk about RTJ too much because like you kind of like teased up. We're going to talk about it a lot over this podcast. But before we move on for you, is there anything you want to say about Jack Harlow real quick?
I will say that Jack Harlow I've been listening to a lot lately just because that came out a little more recently. So that's kind of like fresh in my mind. And a couple of things about that is that, man, I know he's been putting out music for like 4 or 5 years, but this is his first debut album and it fucking really delivered, man. You can tell this is a guy that has been making music for a while, but like finally got a chance to put together a complete project, with the type of support that he needed to make it really great. And super impressed by it. Features like Lil Baby, Chris Brown. Fuck that guy, Chris Brown. But that just shows like the type of like star power that Jack Harlow can get. And Big Sean's verse is one of my favorite on here. So yeah, I know you guys had mentioned that you like that Tyler Harrow track. Obviously, both versions of What's Poppin', are on here. All that shit. With all that shit, you also get like all these like kind of like sexy, like talking about like his like, you know, newfound like his experience with his experiences with his newfound fame and the type of like attention that brings him, and it just makes it really interesting. It's like an inside look at like, you know, this 22-year-old kid who just recently like came up and like, you know, made it to the top out of nowhere, you know, and kind of like seeing like or hearing that story, you know, through this album is like a real treat. So sounds like B wants to move on. so
I'll jump in real quick
Yeah.
before we do move on. The Jack Harlow thing's an interesting one because we did do his last project as a full episode earlier this year, and this has been one of my only experiences of really diving deep into somebody's work before they had what they would have kind of called their big mainstream project, or their kind of, you know, what you called it, right? Like a studio debut. So to be very familiar, like, it's funny in the episode, I didn't know, we all talked about how we don't really know a lot about Jack Harlow's history before that, but like you said, he's been making music for a while, and then we really dove deep and we really picked apart this project that he did, and then he came out with this kind of studio debut. So I kind of have like a weird stance of where like I really liked Jack Harlow from what we did earlier in the year. What's Poppin' is one of my absolute favorite songs that came out in 2020, and this album came out, and I had this kind of, you know, we talked a lot about how we wanted to see these next steps and these leaps from Jack Harlow that I feel like he didn't quite make in this album that we kind of had tasked him to. But at the same time, if this was the first project you had heard from a guy like Jack Harlow, you'd be like, yo, this kid's dope. Like, this kid's got a big future. Like, he's got a lot of, like, he takes a few big steps and this is going to be big for him. But for us, like, we've already seen that and said, you need to take these steps. And then he didn't quite take those steps. He got a better producer for this album, which I think is one of the big things. The music is so much better produced in this one. What's Poppin', we all said, was the only one on the first album that was actually well produced, and the rest were kind of like they felt like someone made them in like their garage or whatever. This whole album was really well produced. He did What's Poppin', the remix. We've talked before. I think most of us actually kind of prefer the original to the remix, because we've had a whole conversation about what do you do when you fuck with a remix versus the original, and taking out the good parts of the original. What's Poppin' was my favorite song on this album, and he had already released that song. You know what I mean? But I think overall, as Harlow, he did take some steps of having a better quality overall of his music. He's always going to be this cool lyricist that's very honest about what's happening in his life, what's going on, what you know, how he's moved to the top, and how his friends around him are reacting to it. And I really respect that, and I like to see that in what he did in this album. You know what I mean? But like we said in the first episode of him, I would have liked to seen a little bit more progress from him to, but if this is like your first studio debut, I think this would be a dope album for him to hit the market with, for people who have never heard of Jack Harlow before. We just have expectations of him that we kind of set for ourselves within this group. You know what I mean? So.
As much as I hate to agree with you, Nick, as much as I hate to agree with you, dude,
we're going to go there. We're going to bring the drama on screen.
As much as I hate to agree with you, I agree with you about this, because this kid is the new, he's kind of like, to me, he's kind of like another G-Eazy. G-Eazy's dope.
Yep.
Jack Harlow's dope. But they both have like a ceiling to them, but they also have a lane that is pretty dope. Like when the situation calls for it, and something about that is just kind of makes you like them. So I did like this album, and dude, I fucking agree with you, which fucking kills me, dude.
It's okay, because it was a lot of good points.
It was a lot of good points. But I specifically agree with you about putting that song on this album. Like, don't do that, dude. You should have. I don't like how he put What's Poppin' on this album. It's like
I don't like when artists do that either. But for someone like him, it makes sense. And like, I don't want to get into my albums, but Pop Smoke did that with one of his songs too. It's like when you have that underground success and you have like that hit, dude, like that's money. Like, and you're gonna like put out your first big project that's gonna get like a lot of marketing, a lot of label push. You almost can't blame him, you know? It's like, why not? I know you put it out before and all your fans know it, but how could you not like give that like best track you've made in your life so far? Um, how could you not put that out again? But
Well, and like we said earlier too, like I mean, for so many people, this was their introduction. That's his first album. You know, they weren't diving into the stuff he put out, and so that makes sense for him, right? That he was like, "Yo, this killed it." 80% of people who are gonna hear this album have never heard this song before, so you got to put it on there, you know. And then the remix was, you know, some people probably liked it more.
Yeah.
I've got opinions on remixes that are different.
It was fun, but like as a song, not as good as the original.
It would have been better on the last album with the original.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Nick, why don't we go to you for your top 5?
All right. So, let me start off with number 5, Royce the 5'9", The Allegory. It's a
That's
fun
Eminem,
album.
That's Eminem's guy, right?
That's his homeboy. That's Bad Meets Evil, the other half of Bad Meets Evil. So, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
this doesn't count as an Eminem reference, though.
It does for me.
Only because you did it. Only because you referenced Eminem. Royce the 5'9", The Allegory. This was one that was on the border on my list. I think that if I'd had a lot more time with a lot of the other albums that were on the fence, that it may or may not have made the cut. But I love the style and the skill that's on there. I love his rhyming schemes. He is Eminem's boy, and you can tell. There's a reason that Eminem formed a fucking hip hop group with this dude, because this dude can fucking rhyme, and because of his clout, it's really, really well produced. Number 4, speaking of the devil, is Eminem. However, this is important to know. This is Music to Be Murdered By, Side B, Deluxe Edition. And the reason that's important is because when they released the Deluxe Edition of Side B, it included Side A. So
This is like a loophole. I don't know. If
yes,
this is allowed.
absolutely,
Cheating.
100%. This is a loophole.
I gotta check my
But-
notes.
You,
I don't know if
check
it's
your
allowed.
notes,
Stop
check
the
your
steal,
album,
bro.
check
This
your
is cheating,
Spotify,
dude.
check your Spotify, check your Apple Music. Both albums are included on this album, and I'll tell you this. I'll be completely honest. Side A and Side B by themselves would not have made this list. We all know that I'm the Eminem stan. I'm the obligatory Eminem reference on every episode. Standalone, neither album would have made it onto my top 5 list. I almost wish he hadn't done this to combine them together, because there was a couple other people that were deserving of the number 5 spot that probably would have gotten bumped up. But you cannot give me like 28 songs of Eminem where he's reached kind of a new version of his prime and peak and not put it on the list. There's a lot of shit music and verses on this album that like I'm not on board with, but there are so many spots where he just reiterates again and again in his fucking mid 40s that this is the king of lyricism, that nobody can really outright what Eminem does. You might be able to out-rap him, and even that still, he'll prove on this album that you can't, but no one can outright what he does, and he proves that over and over again. It might have taken 28 songs with a lot of hit or misses in between, and again, that's why that's the loophole of Side B. Deluxe Edition, let's remember, this is Deluxe Edition, but that's number 4. Then we got Nas, King's Disease, a beautiful album. We did an episode on this. Unbelievable content. We talked a lot about empowering Black culture, Black women, women in general, but doing it in such an interesting way of doing a lot of storytelling and a lot of just really just beautiful lyrics. And it's just hard to argue with Nas, you know what I mean? It's part of my list is also just like top 5 my favorite artists who also happened to put out an album in 2020. But Nas falls on there, and he moved his way up the list the more and more I thought about what he talks about. Then you got Logic at number 2 with No Pressure. I know we got some Logic haters on this podcast. I'm happy to take the Logic heat because I don't like Logic enough overall to like defend him. People talk about, oh, it's mixtape Logic, it's album Logic. I don't know the fucking difference, and I don't give a shit. Like, if the music's good, like, I'm on board with it.
I feel like Logic's the only one that talks about the difference between mixtape Logic and album.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, look at Brandon. Brandon just raised his hand. Brandon talks about it.
One of these.
No,
Yeah, he waved. A lot of people.
Logic calls it out like a lot.
We got friends who talk about it. People, the community talks about the difference between the two. I don't care. I talk about what's good, and I like Logic on both. That's the thing. I'm not a mixtape or an album Logic guy. I like Logic. I like what he talks about. I don't get into this. I don't know because I don't care. You know what I mean? Like someone else can make the argument, but I don't even know. I've never really understood the difference because I'm not like a big Logic stan that I go back and through his whole like history and I'm like, oh, this one's that, this one's that. I think people said that this was an album or what is it? Yeah, the album Logic.
The mixtape thing is,
isn't it?
Yeah, supposedly he retired, but you know how hip hop retirements go.
It's not.
Mixtape Logic is just like the more like he does his kind of like trap thing. It's not about like not necessarily concepts, but you know, it's that the braggadociousness. It's that just bars about how good you are type of shit. And that's the one time that I did like a Logic album.
I did like those better.
I didn't listen to this. I'm sorry, but I did hear that it was really good from a lot.
I don't care about the classification, but I like those better.
We talked about this album when it came out like 6 months ago. Over and over. We talked about it multiple times as a group. You didn't listen to it?
I really don't like Logic though.
Yeah, that's whack. But so anyway, but yeah,
that's fine.
I'm honestly,
totally fine.
I'm not a fan of any artist doing the braggadocious thing, right? Like you guys have heard that from me over and over again. That's not an inconsistent thing with me. I don't like it when artists brag. That's not my jam. Right. And apparently that's mixtape Logic, which is apparently what most people who don't like Logic like about him. So apparently I'm on a completely different plane of other hip hop fans. You know what I mean? You like it when he brags and all these things. That's not my jam. For me, it's Logic. Logic is skilled at storytelling, and he's skilled at his actual craft of the way he hits beats, the way he can rap in 16ths and even 30-second beats that most people can't hit properly, and it's a beautiful thing. He's got some great message. One of my favorite things is the what is it, George Orwell clips he has on this at the beginning and all throughout that are unbelievable. There's a speech from Orwell at the end of this that is unfucking believable, that speaks to, because of when this album was released. Remember, I mentioned that earlier. It's about when was the album released. It was in the middle of the protests and the riots about racial injustice. And this is a fucking famous white guy in like the 50s talking on the radio about how racial injustice is not okay, and that if you don't stand up against it, you're part of the problem. And he weaved this into his thing. You know what I mean? I know people don't like the fact that Logic has got a complicated race or whatever, and the way he talks about it, and dropping N-bombs when maybe he's not entitled to drop N-bombs, whatever. I don't care. I like his artistry. I like what he has to say, and I like his skill, and I think he delivers it in a really big way. At one point, this was actually number 2. Oh wait, no, it still is. It's number 2 on my list. Number 1 on my list, going off of that, is RTJ, Run the Jewels number 4, which is one that when I put this kind of on my list, I knew this was going to be on my list. I thought to myself that I don't know with the way the conversations went and the way I felt about it, this is going to make it this high on my list. I knew it was going to be on my list. I knew there was no way that it was going to get bumped all the way down from my list, because I kind of threw together an initial list of like what hits my mind of like what are my favorite albums. Then let me go through kind of a calendar of everything that was released this year, listen to some things, double check a couple things that, maybe I hadn't heard, but let me make sure, that they weren't. Like Joyner Lucas had an album that came out in October that was actually better than his ADHD album that we reviewed earlier in the year. His Evolution album was better than ADHD. Dizzy Rascal had an album that was super dope. And those were albums that I hadn't heard about. I didn't know about them. So I checked them out when we were kind of putting these lists together. And I thought maybe some certain things might bump RTJ down. But everything ended up, RTJ just kind of, the cream of the crop, just kind of floated up to the top of like, I just couldn't figure out, I couldn't put Nas above it. The subject matter, you know, some of it's the same, but it's a little bit less explicit in Nas, you know, and overall, the relevance of it, the skill of it, the lyrics of it, some of my favorite songs of this year were on this album, and I couldn't just not let RTJ4 float to the top. So, what do you guys got to say about that list? Fight me.
Jay, here's your chance.
Okay, your list. Listen, I'm not saying. First of all,
don't actually fight me, please.
First of all, I wish I could fight you through this fucking screen. I'm kidding. I love you, dude. But okay. So first thing I'll say is this list, and anything I say about your list is not. Your list is valid for sure, and it also shows like your style of what you like, obviously, and your style is that bars quick too. Royce, Eminem, Nas, and I think Nas on your list is the most I vibe with because it's the most melodic. I think he has the most melodic, but he's still bars. He's still a lot of bars and high level and complex. So you obviously love lyrics.
Nick likes that technical shit. Yeah,
you love that technical shit.
You like the craft.
These boys know we've recorded songs together. You guys know how I like it. You know how I do my shit. Look us up. You know how I do my shit. Creators.
Look us up on SoundCloud. That's all we're. That's what
it's actually pronounced creatures, but
oh shit, creatures. That's right.
your group name, bro.
I'm dumb as hell.
Yeah, the school J on the name.
He's about the lyrics, dude. The word. I'm just kidding. But Eminem. So Eminem. That it shows that you love that because a lot of people don't fuck with Eminem anymore, and I don't want to be the one to tell you that, but I'm telling you that. A lot of people don't fuck with Eminem
50.
no more.
He is almost 50.
He's almost 50, dude, and he's still saying shit that like doesn't hit you like he used to say when he was young. But I mean, that's why I wanted to start off with it's not valid to have him on your list because you cannot argue with the technical shit with his writing. And when it comes down to it, I judge these guys their ability to be songwriters because I mean they're all songwriters, and he's a fucking elite like of all time songwriter.
He does need to put out 25 songs just to like have enough good songs for Nick to put it in his top 5.
But by putting out 25 songs, he put out more good songs than everybody else on this list.
Wait, whose list? Oh, your list?
Everybody else's list.
Oh shit.
Ooh.
Per album. I'm not saying per year because I know some of these guys put out like 5 albums this year, which says something else about those people. But
he was going to keep it civil. He was going to keep it civil.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He had already lost the civility.
I like that. I like this move you made. Strike early before I was about to strike you. I'm kidding.
Let's move on from M. Let's move on from M because I already said I said, man, I can't let my boy put out 25 plus songs and not put it on there because there's a lot of fucking fire in there. Yeah. But let's talk about some of the other shit that's on the list. But I'm not saying it. That's my whole point. Is he put out 25 and at best half of them are good, but the half of them are good are fire. And if you take half of 25, that's 12. Some of these albums don't even have 12 good fucking songs on them.
I hate to fucking say it again, but that's correct.
I think I'm looking at Benny the Butcher there.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I'll get you later.
It's because Benny the Butcher is... Okay,
that album was not Benny the Butcher's best album.
Was not?
No.
Brandon.
Well, I mean, no, but what he did... I'll get to it.
I just want
to get to it. Let me just say something about Eminem.
Chaos.
Eminem... You had to find a way to sneak him in here, dude. You had to finagle.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
On that note,
each album on its own, there's no way they would have made it. I agree with that.
I want to ask our listeners if a double disc it needs to be disqualified because like this is a double disc. Is it
Yeah,
not?
Deluxe
Deluxe edition's in the name. Hey, if someone had picked
think it's
fucking, if someone had picked Scorpion 2 years ago,
Right?
it would have counted.
Part of it is like
No one would have
he's
made. No one would have made Jay pick side A or side B.
The thing about Eminem is he didn't compel me enough to even listen to it. I only listened to the song Nat, and I love Eminem.
You didn't
This is why
listen
it
to the
pains
album.
me.
You
I
didn't
didn't
listen to the album.
Eminem, dude.
Well, that's
This
your
is the
fucking problem. You don't have anything to say if you didn't even listen to the album.
Well, he doesn't have anything.
He didn't
he doesn't
just
have
because
anything for
he
me to
didn't
listen
just because
to,
he
bro.
didn't compel
I
you. You
listened to
didn't
the
fucking
last
listen.
three.
You didn't listen. You can't
got a
say
lot-
shit if you didn't listen.
Well, I've listened to his own.
For all you know, that's the best album that was ever made, and you never fucking listened.
one of the reasons. One of the
You can't say shit if you didn't listen. Move
say shit.
on if you didn't
Nick,
listen.
Nick,
I can't say shit when you're yelling.
We'll turn his audio
Hey.
down in post production, so
Hey,
we can
someone
only
mute
hear
him.
you, Jay.
Someone mute him.
Let us,
I'll mute him. Don't worry about it.
Someone mute him.
I never listened. Let me tell you how bad the album was.
I've listened to his entire discography. I'm an Eminem fan. Part of getting on my list, one of the qualifications is you have to be compelling enough for me to want to listen to you. So he didn't make it to my list because he wasn't compelling enough because I've given him chances. I listened to the song Nat. The song Nat is dope by Eminem, but it's dope.
Jay
for
only
one
listens
time
to
listen.
rappers who are 45 years old or younger. Sorry, Eminem.
How old is Jay?
Take your grandpa have an ass.
How is being Eminem not compelling enough?
Because he's even being Eminem, he's released like more content. than
Okay,
Kendrick
B,
Lamar.
you just did that. B, did you listen to both albums?
I did not.
You fuck you guys. You guys didn't even listen to the albums. What the fuck? Why are we
I'm not
talking
saying
about
it.
these?
We
Why are we talking about the albums?
Eminem in 2002.
No, dude.
Let's move on from his albums. If you guys don't have shit to say
Let us
about
move on, then.
his albums, let's move on. Why are we talking about his albums if you guys didn't even listen to his albums? Talking about he's
What
not
do you have to
compelling.
say?
I didn't listen.
What do you have to say about me listening to his whole discography and being a lifelong Eminem stan? I'm a stan. You're not the only stan here.
That's
I'm an Eminem
compelling
fan.
enough to listen to every album.
Not
he
to
puts
me.
out.
How are you going to tell me what's compelling to me, though?
What do you? Why were you telling me that you're a
I'm just-
lifelong fan?
Right.
What's the
so
point of
it's-
that?
The point is, I love Eminem, and even I put him on the. I'm gonna listen to this later when I have time.
So fucking listen to it then. What?
I haven't had
How
time.
are you arguing
yet.
about
That's
an
what I'm
album
saying.
you guys
That's why
haven't
it's.
listened to? You guys haven't heard it, so you can't say anything.
Did you listen to?
I didn't
What do you
say
mean?
anything.
Wait, why are you mad about us not listening to it? Because it's on your list?
Because you're saying it's shit and you haven't heard it.
I never said it was shit. I just said it wasn't compelling enough for me to
Let's
listen
rewind the tape. Let's rewind the tape and hear what you said about it.
You're muted, Jared.
to. Gladly.
I know. I'm talking to my roommate.
Oh, my bad.
My roommate's
What
like, my roommate comes upstairs like, is someone getting their ass kicked up here?
Hey, this is what we needed, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, talk about it,
Unfortunately,
dude.
my entire section, because we have to move on, got lost to
Oh.
people talking about how Eminem's not relevant or compelling, and no one on this podcast besides me has even listened to the fucking albums. So,
No, dude, finish.
great
it.
use.
It's still your turn.
I'm done. I talked about all the albums. Up to you guys to comment on the rest of them.
That was mine on Eminem, dude. What else?
Yeah.
Logic, I feel like is a new Eminem. Like he's a fresh Eminem.
Yeah, you guys don't like
listen-
Logic. You gave me the Royce is just fucking
I like
Eminem's fucking like rides his coattails. I got Eminem. Nas is like all I got, and then RTJ is on half of everybody's list. Like my shit's blown up. Let's fucking move on. I got fucking blasted, even though my list is fucking flames.
No, your list is, dude. Your list is good,
respect
dude. I
your
like
list. I
Eminem.
respect
You wouldn't know because you haven't heard any of the fucking Eminem. And no, raise your hand if you listen to the Royce album.
I might have. That's all I can
Fuck
say.
you guys. Let's fucking move on. I'm done with my section. Let's move on to your albums. I'm done.
I did listen to the
Dude,
first
are you-
3 Eminem songs.
What are we doing
Say.
here? No one listened to any of my fucking albums, and everyone's like, "Ugh, fuck off. Let's go. Move
Wait,
on.
why
Next
are you
person."
mad at us for not listening to your albums?
Because I listened to all of your guys' albums.
Wait a tick. Let's
Nick,
wait a
you
tick
fucking-
there.
You did your
You
list,
submitted
like,
your
way
list
ahead of
last,
everyone else.
bro. And you were the one that wanted us to submit them to listen. You were the only
Nick,
one
you
that
did,
wanted us.
you did your list last. Fuck off.
Yeah, dude.
Oh,
And you were the
dude.
one that
Too
wanted
hostile
us to
right now. You're
submit the
way
list.
too hostile right now, dude.
Let's go to the next person.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Dude, for the record, your list is fucking sick, dude. It is.
All right, we'll go to Jay now, so Nick can get him back. Jay, it's your turn. And you're okay, yeah.
Perfect time for a bathroom break.
Yes,
Sure,
it is.
sure.
Yeah, it is.